into the cypher. Prepare for another all night.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Talking about what is the responsibility, if there is any, of athletes to speak out when you have tragedies like the Trayvon Martin case that happens. If you were with us at the beginning of the show, we had a clip from Charles Barkley who stands that the verdict in Zimmerman's favor was dead on. So we're reaching out to you now and saying, as fans of the sport, how do you feel about the situation? And do you have any particular thoughts about what Charles Barkley said? You can weigh in your thoughts at 773-591-1690 as well. Or if you happen to be a social media guru, you can go ahead and hit us up on Twitter at the Sports Cypher. Should we jump into some callers?
Yeah, let's take Tommy. Haven't heard from Tommy in a couple of weeks. What's going on, brother?
Hey, first of all, let me tell you something, guys. This is the end of my worship on Sunday because it always ends with the Sports Cypher, and I just absolutely applaud the three of you. And, of course, I always start off by saying, hey, to Faruq and Maya and the other guy, but that's just my way of just saying, man, that you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I continue to say that as young people are looking for role models and stuff, it just amazes me how individuals of your caliber are completely overlooked. See, to me, you ought to be the individuals that's doing commencement speeches and stuff to show individuals real time what it takes
Tommy,
to get somewhere.
Stop it.
You're
making Faruq blush.
That's hilarious.
This ain't see, look,
Tommy, nobody wants me talking in front of any students. That's not going to end well.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something. See, that ain't smoke. That's not me trying to, kiss your behind. It's called real talk for real solution for real reality. And so now the question now is, what should athletes be doing? And sadly, I have to tell you, absolutely nothing. Because when there's more of us than them and we do nothing, how in hell can you turn around and ask somebody else whose life is based upon contracts and monies? Entertainers can do this kind of stuff, but not someone who's signed to a contract. How are they going to protest when we're not protesting? And at the end of the day, man, it's a sad story in America when you can't even mind your own damn business being black. So that's where we ought to all be at. See, that 100-city march or all the rest of that nonsense should have been about, wait a minute, how in the hell is it that only on one side of town, no stimulus money, no education, no health care, no employment, no police
Tommy,
protection?
we can only cover so much in one show.
I'm gone, man. Love you guys.
Love you too.
All right, Tommy.
Thank you,
He was rolling out too much. I'm like,
Thank
wait,
you,
you're giving too much. Matter of fact, in between some of these comments, I'm going to read some tweets that athletes put out there when the verdict came out. Here might be one of the most classic tweets that came out in regards to this.
Okay.
This was retweeted by Warren Sapp. Don't forget to set your clock back about 50 years before you go to sleep tonight. Hashtag no justice.
Wow.
I was like, that was witty,
was a good
Warren.
one.
You know, Warren Sapp is very outspoken.
Yes, he is. He's a Florida boy too, so.
Yeah, that's true. He is a Florida boy. All right, so we jump on to the next caller who's been waiting very patiently.
Andre, what's going on, man?
Hey, Andre, how
What's
you
up, Dre?
doing?
Andre, are you there? Are you there, Andre? Going once. Andre, going twice.
Andre.
Call back, Andre. We heard something moving around back there. But, yeah, is that a good point that Tommy made, though, about athletes really not being able to do anything? I mean, are they bound by their leagues to not have social voices? There were athletes in the past, though, that were able to do stuff, that were able to have protests and things like that. Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, Bill Russell, all of the likes of those people.
A lot of athletes came out when the verdict came out. Let me just read some of the things that people had tweeted. Shaq had tweeted, George Zimmerman not guilty. Can you believe that? Wow. I think initially there was just some shock to this because when you talk to people about this case, you hear two things. Some people say, I can't believe he wasn't found not guilty. And then you have other contingency of people who say, but what did you expect? I expected this to be the verdict. I'm not shocked. And it's really interesting because to me, those are people that are absolutely polarized on what they thought the outcome would be. I'll be honest. Given how this is laid out, even with the rule, I understand the law that's on the books. I get that. To me, there was enough evidence pointing to the fact that George Zimmerman was in the wrong. It was obvious to me. And because, just as simply as he could be dismissed and said that he's not guilty because they could not establish who initiated the contact, well, like I said before, I disagree with that because you do know who initiated the contact. He approached someone that he had no right to approach. based on suspicion, which means he had to open his mouth and say something to him. So I disagree. I do believe that out. Some people say you can blame the prosecutor that they didn't press all the right buttons and they didn't, I guess, maybe plant enough reasonable doubt in the juror's mind. But we also said this last week, off camera. Was there a person in America that didn't know about this case, but by the time it had to go to trial? I mean, how could you have found someone that really didn't know what happened? There comes a point in time with certain cases, I think they're better to be bench trials than to be trial by jury. I think something like this is too loaded, and you're asking people to remove emotion and make a decision. And by human nature, that's just something we can't do.
You know what? I think here's something that athletes could do. Let's bring up LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. Both all down in Florida, although it's 22 states that have the stand your ground law, whatever. Right. This would be a bigger impact if they did this. They all decided, you know what, we're not going to re-sign with the Miami Heat. We're not coming back. Because of this law, how we feel about it, we're going to take this stand. We're not going to sign these contracts to stay here. I think if athletes were to do something like that, you know what, I'm not going to help your economy in this state. It's all, when it comes down to it, it's all about money.
Right.
So if I take my talents away from South Beach and send them to Chicago, Milwaukee, wherever the case may be, I'm just throwing out cities, I think then, and flat out say it, this is the reason why I did not resign here. I think that would really shock a lot of people and then kind of flip a lot of people on their heads like, whoa, I didn't know athletes, black athletes, even thought about things like this. I thought it was all about their money, their contracts, and things like that. So something like that has to happen, I think, from the sports side of it.
What Dwayne Wade tweeted when the verdict came out was, wow, stunned. Saddened as a father. Someone makes sense of this verdict for me now, please. Don't worry. I'll wait. And then he tweeted a little bit later, how do I explain this to my young boys?
Yeah, very true.
And he tweeted that the same night the verdict came out. I mean, a lot of athletes were very... But then Dante Stallworth said something I thought, as an athlete, that was very prolific. And I think this is a conversation that needs to happen. He said, instead of rage and anger, let's direct the emotion towards a positive movement, like education, poverty, and black-on-black crime in the hood. And you have a lot of people who feel like, yes, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. We should not be content with the verdict. But as a community, there is clearly some other issues going on. I mean, some people even had tweeted, if this was black-on-black crime, would it be the same? Would it be the same outrage?
No.
So now is race truly the motivator? I mean, it made a lot of athletes, when you read through some of the tweets, which I have a lot of them, they were shocked, stunned, but a lot of them asked for peace, don't respond negatively, don't destroy your community because that's where you live. Mm-hmm. Why should you destroy what belongs to you? So they did.
But to me, that kind of sounds like keeping the ninjas calm, so to speak.
Well, no, you're right. Don't tear up your stuff. No, that's right.
I understand that, but still, I guess the topic I'm kind of really trying to figure out here is what. I like what Demonze said. That was a great point as far as hitting these states in their pockets that have this law, not just Florida, but whatever state will have this, because this law is pretty much set up for cowards or for people. This is set up for the lady walking to her car in Jewel. She thinks some black guy is walking behind her that's going to rob her, and he has no cares about this woman in the world. She can just pull out on him.
I was standing my ground.
Right, that's what this law is. So this law, it's a law thing on me. So this is a thing where the only way it's going to be stopped or this law is going to be taken away is by hitting these states economically.
Well, I do believe that this is a great opportunity to challenge the states that have these type of laws on the book and say, this needs to be reviewed because you're right, it leaves too much of a margin for error and interpretation of people.
True.
It's like the whole conceal and carry law.
Yeah.
That's not to be funny, that's a loaded weapon. I mean, so other states are coming up with similar ways to allow people to have the exact same access to, I guess, protect themselves under the guise of, I felt threatened.
I just think athletes have to be out in front. We were talking about Jay-Z last week. You saw him and Beyonce was out at the rally with Trayvon Martin's mother. Mm-hmm. So that was, I'm not surprised because Jay-Z has been to other things. But as far as athletes, I should say this. They need to motivate people. You know what? You don't like this law because it's on the books. You need to vote for someone who will take it off the books. So all these marches, all well and good. You should do it. But also make sure you march to your poll place and make sure you pull that, punch that hole, whatever you got to do for that ballot.
You're right. When it comes
That's the next
you're right.
thing.
When it comes down to vote, it would be a wonderful ideal because they are viewed as role models to step up and say, what do you really know about this candidate? And ask some really good questions like, what is your thought on this particular law? I mean, I think that's great. But we're also asking people to step to the forefront where this is not their comfort zone. I think the reason you saw so many tweets and responses, it elicited an emotional response from people. They were shocked. You know what I'm saying?
Because they figured it could have been them or somebody
right.
they know.
For a moment,
situation.
they identified with Trayvon Martin, with the parents. But you're not talking about people that generally are very astute politically. Heck, most of them aren't even astute economically. They just happen to make a lot of money. No, I'm not trying to be mean.
No, that's true.
But these aren't people that are vested, honestly. When you talk about building a community and educating and awareness, that's never been an athlete's forte. Now, when you talked about the people, you talk about Bill Russell and people like that did it, look at the era when they stood up. That was an entirely different black community than what you have right now.
True.
But this is the type of thing that could kind of, sort of galvanize people to be how, the civil rights movement was. That's really, I think, what this whole thing is kind of reminding people of. That's why I'm saying, like, this is a thing where athletes, I don't know what they could do. Maybe the economic thing is probably the best way, but this is something where athletes could be at the forefront of this. And with entertainers doing it, I don't see why it should be a problem for anyone in the
Because they
athletic
technically
realm
do
to
have
do it.
contracts. I mean,
Yeah, they have
it's a little
contracts,
different,
right.
their interpretation
Tour
and how they
dates,
present.
that's contracts,
It's a little
too,
different. I mean, what they're governed under in their contracts and perception in the public is a little different than an athlete is.
But a tour is in essence a contract. You have to go to these cities.
Well, then
and
the record
perform there.
deals in essence is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their contract.
Yeah, I just think that these guys have to come out. I think this will be like one of the biggest moments if we want to say LeBron James. I don't want to keep harping on him and throwing all this weight on his shoulders because but he's down in Florida. So if he was to actually do the two things I just said, come out and say, you know what, I'm not going to resign because of this, and you know what, I'm actually going to come out in front and say you shouldn't vote for someone who stands for this. If he really wants to make a mark, I believe, man, that's a legacy. That's like really leaving a mark in Florida. Exactly.
And he is a father of what, 2-3 boys?
Two boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.